Another mystery buried deep in the hills of eastern Washington keeps resurfacing. A bottomless pit said to be a pathway to the paranormal. KOMO4's Denise Whitaker heads east in search of the hole.
Washington State. In 1997, Mel Waters called a radio show, claiming he dropped thousands of feet of fishing line and never hit bottom. Strange things happened near it. Then someone lowered a camera down as far as possible. The footage showed something so disturbing, they cut the feed immediately. What did that camera capture? Why did the government seal the property? Join us as we descend into America's most terrifying mystery. The hole people wouldn't forget. Deep in the quiet hills of eastern Washington, there is a story people still whisper about. It is not written on road signs. It does not appear on maps. Yet, for decades, the idea of it has refused to disappear. People call it Mel's Hole, a simple name for something that was never simple. The hole was said to be hidden in thick forest land, far from busy roads and towns. At first glance, it sounded ordinary, just a hole in the ground. But the stories surrounding it were anything but normal. People claimed the hole had no bottom. No matter how far you lowered a line, it never reached the end. The darkness inside seemed endless, like the earth had opened its mouth and never closed it again. For many years, most people laughed at the idea. They said it was just another late-night radio tale, something spooky meant to keep listeners awake after midnight, a story told for entertainment, not truth. But even as the years passed, the legend did not fade. It grew stronger. It passed from radio waves to internet forums, from whispered campfire stories to online videos watched by millions. What made the story different was how often it returned. New people kept finding it. New listeners kept asking the same questions. If it was fake, why did it feel so real? If it was only a story, why did no one ever fully explain it away? Locals around the area spoke carefully. Some said they had heard about the hole long before it became famous. Older residents remembered being warned as children not to wander too far into the woods. Hunters spoke of areas where animals behaved strangely, places where the forest felt quiet in a way that made the skin crawl. Not silent like peace, but silent like something was listening. The hole became more than just a pit in the ground. It became a symbol, a place where science failed, a place where rules seemed to bend. It represented the fear that maybe there are parts of the world still untouched, unexplained, and watching us back. Every legend needs a beginning. Every mystery has a moment when it steps out of the shadows and into the light. For Mel's Hole, that moment did not come from a scientist, an explorer, or a government report. It came from a simple phone call in the middle of the night. And once that call was made, the hole stopped being just a rumor. It became a question the world could not stop asking. But who was the man brave enough to tell the story first? The man who made the call. The legend of Mel's Hole truly began in the late 1990s, during a time when the internet was still young and late-night radio ruled the strange corners of curiosity. One night, a man calling himself Mel Waters dialed into a popular radio show known for discussing the unexplained. He did not sound excited. He did not sound scared. He sounded calm, normal, almost boring. That calm voice made people listen. Mel claimed he owned land near Ellensburg, Washington. On that land, he said, was a hole unlike any other. It was about the width of a small room, lined with stone near the top, and perfectly round. He explained that the hole had been there long before he arrived. No one knew who dug it. No records existed. It was simply part of the land, accepted but avoided. Out of curiosity, Mel said he decided to test it. He lowered fishing line into the hole, weighted with small objects. The line kept going down, and down, and down. He claimed he released tens of thousands of feet of line and still never reached the bottom. The depth he described was deeper than any hole humans had ever drilled into the earth. People listening did not know how to react. Some laughed, some grabbed notebooks, others felt uneasy. Mel was not telling the story like a joke. He added details without hesitation. He spoke of the hole never freezing in winter. He spoke of dogs refusing to go near it, even wild ones. Birds would not fly above it. The air around the hole felt heavy and still, as if the land itself was holding its breath. He also shared darker rumors, stories passed around by neighbors, tales of animals thrown into the hole and later seen alive, but changed. Mel said he could not prove those stories, but he never dismissed them either. He simply repeated what others had told him. What made the call unforgettable was not just what Mel said, but how he said it. He did not sound like a man seeking fame. He was not selling anything. He did not exaggerate with emotion. He spoke like someone describing a broken fence or a strange tree on their property. Casual, measured, real. By the end of the call, the listeners were divided. Some were convinced it was fiction. Others felt something was wrong in a way they could not explain. The show moved on. The night ended. But the story did not. That single phone call turned Mel's Hole from a local rumor into a global mystery. And once the world heard about the hole, it seemed the hole began to notice the world back. because after that call, everything started to change. Signs the hole was not normal. The first thing anyone noticed about Mel's hole was how the world around it seemed wrong. It was not just a deep hole in the ground. It was like a place where normal rules stopped working. People who visited or even came close spoke of an odd, heavy feeling in the air, a kind of quiet that made the world seem far away. Birds that normally flew in flocks refused to cross over it. Rabbits and deer would skirt its edges, as if they understood something humans could not. Mel Waters described it calmly, almost like he was talking about a neighbor's fence, but every detail he shared carried a sense of unease. He said he had tried throwing objects down the hole, first sticks, then rocks, then larger items. Nothing hits the bottom, he told the radio host one late night. Not even after miles and miles of line. Scientists later calculated that if he was right, the depth would be impossible, a tunnel through the earth that defied all known geology. But Mel did not speak like someone inventing a story. His voice had the steady tone of someone who had seen it with his own eyes. Animals were one of the first signs that something was very wrong. Neighbors reported dogs whining at the edge and refusing to go near the pit. Birds would circle high above and then suddenly turn, never crossing the invisible boundary over the hole. Even insects seemed to avoid it. Some people who had walked near the hole claimed a sudden cold breeze, though there was no wind at all, and a strange silence that swallowed sound like a sponge. It was a silence that made people hold their breath without realizing it, as if the hole was listening. Mel also told a story that shocked listeners. He said he had thrown a dead dog into the hole, a small beagle he found on the roadside. Days later, the dog appeared near his cabin, alive and barking, as if nothing had happened. He claimed similar things happened with other animals. Birds, cats, and rabbits disappeared into the hole and returned unharmed, or sometimes not at all. No one could explain how this was possible. Mel did not give reasons. He just reported the events plainly, letting the strangeness speak for itself. Even the ground around the hole was strange. Mel described soil that seemed unnaturally dark, almost like it was absorbing light. Plants grew differently near its edge. Grasses twisted in odd ways. Small trees bent, as if pushed by invisible hands. Local hunters claimed their compasses would spin uncontrollably when near the hole. People who lived miles away said they could feel vibrations, faint at first, then stronger, as if the earth itself were breathing in that one spot. Despite all the warnings, curiosity drew people closer. A few brave or foolish individuals tried to measure the hole themselves. Ropes, chains, and even a homemade elevator were sent down. Every attempt seemed to confirm Mel's story. The lines never reached the bottom. Instruments broke or gave readings that made no sense. Some who stayed too long reported a creeping dizziness, as if the hole were pulling at their minds. Stories spread quickly, first among neighbors, then across the state, finally reaching radio hosts and curious listeners nationwide. People called in, asking Mel if the hole could be a natural formation or if it was man-made. He shook his head. "Nobody dug this," he said. "It has been here longer than any of us. It came from somewhere else." Some researchers, skeptics, and journalists tried to investigate. Most left uneasy and confused. Some refused to speak on record, claiming the area had an odd effect on them, a feeling they could not describe but would never forget. The hole had a reputation that grew faster than any story. Becoming more than a place, it became a warning, a mystery, and a legend all at once. By the end of the decade, Mel's stories hinted at something bigger. He said the hole was not the only strange sight, though he gave few details. He warned that it was dangerous to look too closely. Still, the more he revealed, the more people wanted to know. And every description, every tale of animals coming back, instruments failing, and strange shadows only deepened the mystery. As the legend grew, one thing became clear: the hole was not normal. The world it opened or hid was beyond human understanding. Scientists could not explain it. The military seemed interested, though no one would say why. And Mel Waters, the man who had spoken so calmly to millions over the radio, remained the only known witness. People wondered if the hole was a natural miracle or something else entirely. But soon, the attention it attracted reached far beyond neighbors and radio listeners. Strange men in black vehicles started appearing, and the story began to get darker. Government attention and silence. After the world heard Mel's story, life around the hole changed. It was no longer just a curious legend whispered on the radio. It became a point of attention that drew outsiders, strangers, vehicles, and eventually, official eyes. Mel described men in dark suits and black cars, moving silently, always watching from a distance. Sometimes they arrived late at night, parking along the edges of his property, headlights off, engine humming quietly. They never spoke but made their presence clear. Mel claimed the government, or someone claiming to be the government, took control of the area. He said he was warned not to talk, not to share any measurements or photographs. They set limits on who could visit, turning the hole into a controlled space. The once wild forest seemed off limits to the public. Even locals who had never met Mel noticed unusual activity: helicopters hovering low, unfamiliar trucks on dirt roads, and an unspoken tension that made everyone uneasy. Neighbors who approached asked questions. Mel often shook his head and smiled faintly, refusing to explain too much. He said the men were interested in the hole's properties, in ways no one could understand. "They are testing things I cannot talk about," he told radio listeners. "Things that don't belong to this world, or maybe to ours." The story became harder to verify. What had seemed like an open legend now had fences, cameras, and silent watchers. Mel himself vanished for long stretches. Weeks or months went by without a call to the radio show. Listeners and fans grew anxious. Rumors spread. Some said the government had taken him away. Others whispered that he had gone underground, hiding from powers he did not want to name. The hole had pulled him into something larger, a mystery wrapped in secrecy. Even reporters who tried to investigate were blocked. One journalist recalled arriving near the property, only to find black SUVs parked strategically. The reporters were watched, asked questions, and finally sent away without explanation. It was as if the hole's legend had triggered a chain reaction, a silent alarm that could not be ignored. What made the story stranger was that Mel never claimed the men were threatening him directly. There was no shouting or fighting. He spoke as if he were under polite but firm supervision, a witness in a place where rules were invisible but strict. And still, the mystery grew. Every interview hinted at things he could not say. Every disappearance of an animal or strange phenomenon near the hole seemed to attract attention far beyond what a simple pit in the forest should demand. As the years went by, the hole became almost mythical. It was no longer just the depth or the animals that fascinated people. It was the silence, the surveillance, the feeling that something very powerful had taken notice. Some speculated it was a government project gone wrong, or perhaps a location of cosmic significance. Others believed the hole itself was alive, and the men in black were its guardian. Mel occasionally returned to the radio show to offer hints, never full explanation. He spoke of technology, of strange readings, of events that seemed impossible, but before anyone could investigate, he would disappear again. The pattern continued for years, keeping the story alive, but frustrating anyone who tried to uncover the truth. The combination of the hole's impossible depth, the animal anomalies, and the government's presence created a perfect storm. People were captivated, terrified, and desperate for answers. And with Mel's voice the only guide, the story remained a mystery that no one could fully grasp. The darkness surrounding the hole was not just physical. It had become a symbol of the unknown, of power and secrecy, and of the things humans were never meant to see. The deeper it pulled, the more the ordinary world seemed irrelevant, replaced by a strange, shadowy tension that touched everyone who tried to approach it. But the story did not end there. Years later, Mel would return with new claims, pointing to a second hole, guarded by soldiers far from Washington. This time, the mystery would stretch even further, and the world would start to wonder what lay beneath. A bigger mystery emerged. For a long time, people believed Mel's story ended with the hole in Washington. One strange place, one strange man, one unexplained mystery. But years later, Mel returned with something that changed the shape of the story completely. He claimed there was another hole. This second hole was not in a forest. It was not hidden by trees or hills. According to Mel, it was located deep in the deserts of Nevada, far from towns and roads, a place where the land stretches endlessly and silence feels heavy. He said this hole was shown to him by local native community, people who had known about it for generations. They treated the hole with respect and fear. It was considered sacred, avoided, never disturbed. The locals believed it was not meant to be touched or explored. For a long time, it stayed that way until outsiders arrived. Mel claimed the military became involved almost immediately. Trucks appeared, fences went up, helicopters hovered overhead. What had once been an untouched place became a restricted zone. Unlike the first hole, this one was not ignored. It was studied. Mel said he witnessed strange experiments near the Nevada hole. He spoke of animals being lowered inside and returned chained. One story stood out more than all the others. He claimed a sheep was lowered into the hole and brought back dead, but still warm. Inside, its body was something else, something alive, something that did not belong. He described it as a seal-like creature with dark, intelligent eyes. It did not make sounds. It did not struggle. Instead, Mel said it communicated in a way that did not use words. A direct feeling, a presence. Moments later, military personnel took the creature away. No questions were allowed. No explanations were given. Mel also spoke about a strange substance found near the hole. He called it burning ice. It felt cold, yet it caught fire when exposed to air. It did not melt. It did not behave like anything known. He believed it could be a powerful energy source. The military, he said, was deeply interested. Once again, Mel felt he had gone too far. He asked questions. He stayed too long. Soon after, he was escorted away from the site. Armed guard, silent warning. The same feeling of fear he described years earlier returned. This second hole changed everything. If the first hole was an accident, the second felt intentional. If the first was ignored, the second was controlled. Together, they suggested a pattern, not a random mystery, but something repeated, studied, and hidden. People began to ask a new question. Not, is Mel's hole real? But how many holes are there? But as Mel's story grew larger, science stepped in and said none of it should exist at all. Science challenges the claims. From the beginning, scientists had serious problems with Mel's claims. But once he started talking about multiple holes, creatures, and unknown materials, the scientific world pushed back harder than ever. Geologists were clear. A hole as deep as Mel described could not exist. The Earth's crust is not built that way. Pressure increases rapidly the deeper you go. Heat rises, rock cracks, and collapses. Even the most advanced drilling projects in human history could only reach a fraction of the depth, Mel claimed. The deepest hole ever drilled by humans took decades to create and required massive machines, constant cooling, and unlimited funding. Even then, the project had to stop because the heat became unbearable and the rock unstable. Mel claimed to reach twice that depth using fishing line, a pulley, and curiosity. To scientists, this was impossible. They also questioned the behavior of the hole. A deep shaft should trap cold air, freeze in winter, and show signs of collapse. Mel's hole did none of that. The walls stayed solid. The opening remained clear. The temperature never changed. These details broke known geological rules. Then there were the stories of revived animals, intelligent creatures, and burning. Chemists dismissed the material as fantasy. Biologists rejected the idea of unknown creatures surviving such conditions. Physicists pointed out that communication without sound or signals had no scientific basis. Piece by piece, experts explained why each part of the story could not be true, and yet the story refused to die. Because science could not explain everything away. It could say what should not exist, but it could not say why Mel vanished. It could not explain the rumors of restricted land. It could not explain why no records of Mel could be found, or why different people from different places describe similar holes with similar effects. Some scientists quietly admitted one thing. While the details were extreme, the Earth still hides many unknowns. Ancient mines, vertical lava tubes, forgotten military shafts, structures buried and erased from history. Not bottomless pits, but deep enough to cause confusion and fear. And fear, once planted, grows fat. People began to wonder if Mel exaggerated the depth but not the danger. If he misunderstood what he saw but not what he felt. If the truth was buried somewhere between impossible science and uncomfortable silence. Because legends do not need to be fully true to survive. They only need one unanswered question. And Mel's hole had many. But the silence was about to be broken by people who stopped debating the story and decided to search for the hole themselves. The internet finds the hole. For many years, Mel's hole existed in a strange kind of silence. The radio calls faded, Mel stopped speaking, and the mystery slowly drifted out of the public eye. But the internet does not forget. It waits, it stores fragments, and it connects ideas long after people think a story is over. Old audio clips from late-night radio were uploaded to forums, shared quietly at first, then passed along to video platforms where new audiences discovered them. Listeners who had never heard of Mel Waters suddenly found themselves pulled into a story that felt unfinished, confusing, and unsettling in a way modern mysteries rarely are. Online communities formed around a single question: what if Mel was telling the truth? People began digging through maps of eastern Washington, comparing satellite images, marking ridges, valleys, forest lines, and forgotten access roads. Mel had never given exact directions, only loose descriptions. But those fragments were enough to start a hunt. Most searches led nowhere, but each failure only deepened the obsession. The story moved from entertainment to investigation. Late-night threads turned into long research posts. Users compared geological data, old land records, and historical aerial photographs. Many concluded the hole could not exist, yet others noticed something strange. The areas Mel described had gaps, places where information felt thin, as if something had been skipped over. Then, a single post changed the tone completely. On a small message board known for serious deep dives, a user claimed they had found something unusual near Ellensburg. They shared a satellite image showing a perfectly circular patch of land deep in the forest. No road leading to it, no visible construction marks, no burn-in scars, just a clean, unnatural shape surrounded by trees. The image did not explode across the internet. Instead, it spread slowly, quietly, shared through private messages and closed groups. Some dismissed it as an edited image. Others noticed details that were harder to ignore. The circle was too precise, too isolated, and strangely absent from older imagery. A small group began talking privately. They were not content creators or thrill seekers. They were people with technical backgrounds, drone operators, engineers, imaging specialists, people who understood underground spaces and signal behavior. They agreed on one rule from the start: no attention. They believed attention was dangerous. If Mel's hole had stayed hidden for so long, it was because it did not respond well to being watched. The group prepared carefully, packing gear that could pass as ordinary camping equipment, a truck, tents, supplies, nothing that would stand out. They traveled quietly, without sharing plans. When they reached the area shown in the image, something felt wrong immediately. The forest was quiet, not peaceful, but empty. Bird sounds faded as they moved deeper. The air felt heavy and still. And then the clearing appeared without warning. Trees stopped in a clean line. The ground dipped inward, smooth and symmetrical, as if pressed down rather than dug. The opening was darker than it should have been, deeper than natural depressions in the area. Light vanished quickly inside. They took measurements, scanned the ground, checked soil stability. The earth around the opening was compacted. Roots bent away from it instead of growing through it. There were no signs of collapse, no debris pile, no evidence of recent digging. It did not look. No one said the name out loud, but everyone felt it. This place matched the story too well. They worked fast, aware that staying too long felt like a mistake. A small crane was assembled. The tether system tested again and again. The camera they brought was built for deep industrial inspection. Reinforced casing, stabilized movement, night vision, long cable, designed for environments where failure was not an option. Clouds rolled in overhead, light dimmed across the forest. Time felt limited. Whatever this place was, it did not feel passive. The camera was positioned carefully over the opening, balanced, steady, and then slowly lowered. For the first time in decades, something was about to look directly into Mel's hole. The camera and the cut. The camera descended slowly. The first stretch revealed compact dirt and hardened soil, small roots clinging to the walls as if reaching upward. Surface light faded quickly, swallowed by dark, and then the onboard lights activated, cutting a narrow tunnel of visibility through the void. As the camera moved deeper, the walls began to change. Less loose earth, more compressed clay and stone, smoother in places, uneven in others, not drilled, not carved. Shaped by pressure over long periods of time, the structure remained stable. The signal stayed clear, no static, no flicker. At first, everything suggested an ordinary deep shaft. Then the instruments began to behave oddly. Temperature readings dipped suddenly, then corrected themselves. The compass drifted slightly, not enough to trigger alarms, but enough to be noticed. The technicians marked it as possible interference. The descent continued. Further down, the shaft widened just a little. Not enough to be a chamber, just enough to break the perfect vertical shape. The camera lights swept across the walls and caught something reflect. It did not move like water. It did not shine like metal. Instead, it absorbed the light and returned it unevenly, dark, glossy, unnatural. The camera adjusted focus automatically. That was when the shape appeared. At first, it looked like a shadow, something caused by angle or lighting, easy to dismiss. But as the camera drifted closer, the outline remained, tall, thin, unmoving, positioned within the widened section of the shaft. No face could be seen, no clear features, only form, the kind of shape that should not exist deep underground. The feed hesitated, frames dropped, audio flattened into silence. The image stuttered as if struggling to remain stable. Then the screen went. The tether showed no sudden pull, no snap, no loss of tension. The camera was still attached, still hanging in place, but it no longer responded. Commands failed, signals vanished, the feed was gone. They attempted retrieval immediately. The crane lifted slowly, carefully. The cable returned intact, clean, undamaged. but the camera itself never came back. Later, the footage was reviewed frame by frame, slowed down, enhanced, examined in detail. The reflective surface was real, the shape was real, and in one brief moment, the outline shifted slightly, not toward the camera, but as if adjusting its position, as if it noticed it was being watched. The group reached a quiet agreement. This was not equipment failure, not interference, not coincidence. The feed had been cut. They left the area before nightfall, quietly, without discussion. Within days, satellite images of the clearing changed, the perfect circle softened, blending back into the forest, as if it had never existed at all. The surviving footage spread quietly online, copied, removed, re-uploaded. Each version lost clarity, but not impact. The whole had been found, and something inside it had looked back. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and also click the next video shown on your screen.